The United States is on the cusp of ushering in a new era in air-launched weapons systems. New missiles that boast longer ranges, more advanced sensors, and even onboard artificial intelligence, all aimed at not just making these weapons more lethal, but more broadly capable for a wide variety of combat operations. After decades worth of updates and upgrades on the same old weapon systems, Uncle Sam is now rolling out the red carpet for a long list of new air-to-air and air-to-surface missiles. Some that travel in packs, hunting ships using artificial intelligence to distribute their targets, while others fly at speeds in excess of Mach 5, maneuvering under scramjet propulsion to avoid enemy defenses. And I'm just getting started. Let's talk about the next generation of America's airborne firepower. I'm Alex Hollings, and this is Air Power. Conflict of Nations is a huge online PvP strategy game that places you at the helm of a real nation and its military apparatus at the onset of World War III. This game lets you square off against as many as 128 other players, in real-time play that can take weeks to complete and takes strategy and realism to another level. You can build up your military your way, choosing between platforms like fighter jets, tanks, nuclear submarines, and more. You can declare war on your neighbors or form coalitions, long-term or short-term, whatever it takes to achieve your objectives. And if you're good enough, you can take over the world. Conflict of Nations lets you play in the same account on PC and your mobile device. And if this sounds up your alley, I can get you a great deal. Just follow the link in the description below to get 13,000 gold and 1 month of premium subscription completely free. Now that offer's only good for 30 days from when this video goes live, so act quick if you want to get in on that. And while we're on the topic of World War III, let's get back to business. While the world of military aviation has seen consistently rapid advancements since its very inception, when you zoom out to the macro level, trends begin to emerge. While the steady pace of progress can be found throughout, the path of progress nonetheless comes with inflection points. Periods of time when new technologies, concepts, design methodologies, material sciences, or a combination of all four emerge from the ground clutter of R&D to reshape the way aviators fly and fight in the sky. And over the 121 years since mankind first harnessed powered flight, few nations have been at the forefront of aviation technology, or are responsible for more of these inflection points than the United States. From the world's first military aircraft in 1909, to the first aircraft ever armed with a machine gun in 1912, to the first pilot to break the sound barrier in 1947, to the first operational stealth aircraft in 1983, America has consistently broken down the technological barriers between what was and what could be in the realm of air power. And with that focus on flight, U.S. warfighting doctrine has grown not just to embrace the importance of aviation, but to rely on it as the cornerstone of the American way of war. Establishing air dominance, or the ability to take and keep control of the airspace over any battlefield, is among the most complex and challenging jobs any fighting force could be assigned. But for more than a half century now, doing exactly that has been Uncle Sam's bread and butter. But the relentless march of time doesn't pick favorites, and despite America's historical successes, the only way it can really maintain its dominant edge in the world's skies is to usher in yet another new era in air power. The incredible air-launched weapons of the Cold War, kept relevant through consistent updates over time, are reaching the end of their relevance, while adversary states like China continue to tout new advancements in long-range weapons, precision guidance, and rapidly evolving kill webs tailored specifically to perceived vulnerabilities in the American defense apparatus. But the United States has no intention of relinquishing the air power advantage it has long maintained. And in order to retain its position atop the air dominance heap, America will need more than a bevy of new fighters, new UCAVs, and new bombers making their way towards service. America's going to need a new generation of weapon systems, purpose-built to leverage technological advancements in propulsion, guidance, targeting, and more. And if all goes according to plan, these new weapons will provide the US with the edge it needs to maintain air supremacy throughout the better part of the 21st century, creating yet another inflection point in the timeline of air warfare. And while we're at it, reshaping the way nations fight in the skies around greater ranges, higher speeds, and more onboard computing power than any weapons have ever boasted in history. Time may not pick favorites, but Uncle Sam sure as heck does. And here are some of the newest and most capable air-launched weapons that are making their way into America's arsenal as we speak. Starting with the Stand-in Attack Weapon, or SiAW. The Air Force kicked off its stand-in attack weapon development cycle back in January of 2020 by issuing a request for information to industry partners for a new air-to-ground weapon specifically meant to be carried inside the internal weapons bay of the branch's runway queen F-35A. Right from the get-go, one could argue the Air Force had Chinese targets in mind, highlighting the need to, quote, hold at risk surface elements of the anti-access area denial environment right there in the RFI. In September of 2023, the Air Force awarded Northrop Grumman the contract to field this new missile, which would be based directly on another weapon that we'll be discussing on this list, the Advanced Anti-Radiation Guided Missile Extended Range, or AARGM-ER. Now, the stand-in attack weapon is envisioned as a means to engage just about any stationary or moving target on the ground or even at sea, leveraging its multi-mode guidance capabilities to close with vital elements of China's anti-ship and anti-air defenses to clear a path for American carrier strike groups to close within striking distance of Chinese shores. The SiAW will carry a different warhead and fuse than the AARGM-ER from which it's based, but it appears to boast the same GPS-assisted inertial navigation system and millimeter wave radar seeker. And what that means is these missiles can close with pre-programmed targets, even in GPS-denied environments. Or it can hunt for targets within a set area to engage, identify them, and then close with those targets using its onboard radar seeker, even if they try to pack up and run. You can even launch this weapon toward a set target area more or less blind, relaying updated target information to it as it flies via a two-way data link. When combined with the advanced sensor suite of the F-35A, the SiAW will offer a single weapon that can address a wide variety of surface threats. Now, this weapon's actual range has not been disclosed, but we don't expect it to be a standoff weapon. In other words, it's not the sort of missile that you would launch from a non-stealth aircraft from well outside the reach of enemy air defenses. Instead, this is a missile designed to be leveraged by stealth platforms like the F-35 or B-21. And by parsing through historical statements about this program and its intentions, it seems likely that this weapon has a range of somewhere between 96 and 120 miles. The Air Force intends to see the SiAW enter service sometime in 2026. And while we're talking about it, why not climb up the family tree just a little bit further to the AGM-88G AARGM-ER. The latest and greatest iteration of America's long-serving high-speed anti-radiation, or HARM missile family, the Advanced Anti-Radiation Guided Missile Extended Range, or AARGM-ER, try to say that 10 times fast, is arguably among the most important new weapon systems to emerge in recent years. Anti-radiation missiles hone in on the electromagnetic radiation, or radar waves, broadcast by surface-to-air missile arrays, making them a vital part of America's suppression and destruction of enemy air defense operations. And the AARGM-ER builds upon this long-standing concept in a number of important ways. The first is the use of multi-mode guidance, which this weapon carried over from its precursor, the AARGM. Traditionally, air defense radar arrays have been able to avoid being destroyed by powering their arrays down at different intervals, or when a threat is approaching, to eliminate the broadcasting radiation that weapons like the HARM hone in on. The AARGM-ER offsets this tactic by using GPS-assisted inertial guidance to identify the precise location of the array's last broadcast, so it can continue to close with that point, regardless of whether or not the array is online. But of course, a mobile array, or one set up by a particularly skilled crew, can be broken down and relocated fairly quickly. But the AARGM-ER is prepared for that possibility as well, thanks to an onboard millimeter wave radar seeker that makes it possible for the missile to identify and close with its target even when on the run. An onboard weapon impact assessment transmitter relays terminal flight data to satellites just prior to the missile making impact, allowing intel officials to assess the likelihood of the strike's success even before any other assets can get there to provide a battle damage assessment. But more important than the AARGM-ER's onboard electronics is its new rocket motor, which is shorter in length but has a larger diameter, and what Northrop Grumman describes as, quote, more mature technologies housed within it. This new propulsion setup was promised to double the 30-plus mile range of previous HARMs, with more recent reporting claiming even more substantial increases, ranging from 60 nautical miles, or roughly 69 standard miles, to as high as 186 miles, though both Northrop Grumman and the Defense Department have offered little in the way of formal confirmation on these figures. Based on public reporting that Russia's most advanced NEBO-M radar arrays, leveraged by integrated air defense systems like the S-400 Triumph, would struggle to target an F-35 at ranges outside of 20 miles, this weapon will provide the US with a significant suppression and destruction of enemy air defense capability, sort of the equivalent of doubling a boxer's reach without reducing any of the impact on target. Now, regardless of its actual range, the Air Force was impressed enough with the AARGM-ER to make it the basis for that aforementioned SiAW program, and the Pentagon intends to put this new radar hunting weapon into service sometime this year. But now let's move on to a different family of weapons, one with a more ridiculous name, the JASSM family of cruise missiles. Because while the SiAW and AARGM-ER are both parts of the same missile lineage, Lockheed Martin's AGM-158 Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff Missile and its subsequent siblings in the JASSM family may have an even greater impact on the future of air warfare, and honestly, even more. In fact, there are so many iterations of this weapon and novel delivery methods for them that I could have made this list all about the JASSM family of missiles and still had plenty to talk about. The original JASSM entered service in 2003 as a turbojet-powered, low-observable cruise missile with an unclassified range of 230 miles and a 1,000-pound WDU-42B penetration and blast fragmentation warhead. Initial guidance for this missile comes in the form of GPS-assisted inertial navigation, allowing the missile to operate in even GPS-denied environments before transitioning to an infrared imaging seeker when closing with its target. That infrared seeker is much more than a heat-chasing sensor, however, and it might be better to think of these weapons as seeing in infrared while assessing and identifying targets and even the most vulnerable points of impact on those targets. This weapon's stealth, range, and guidance capabilities led to it becoming the basis for the Air Force Research Laboratory's Rapid Dragon program, which allows cargo aircraft like the C-130 and the massive C-17 to launch a dozen or more of these stealthy cruise missiles in rapid succession from outside the reach of enemy air defenses, allowing the US to engage a large number of targets all but simultaneously for a pretty low cost and with very low risk. In 2014, that original JASSM was followed up by the new and improved AARGM-158B JASSM-ER, with that ER also short for extended range. This new iteration from the JASSM family is the exact same size and shape as its predecessor. In fact, it's all but impossible to tell the difference between them by just looking at the outside of these missiles. But inside, the JASSM-ER has a larger internal fuel tank and a more efficient turbofan propulsion system that extends this missile's range out to more than 620 miles, or around 1,000 kilometers. In 2018, the JASSM-ER was followed up by the AGM-158C Long-Range Anti-Ship Missile, or LRASM. Now, this is a semi-autonomous ship-hunting weapon capable of not only using its electro-optical seeker to identify enemy ships and the most viable point of impact on them, but to even network via two-way data link and use onboard artificial intelligence to distribute those targets amongst themselves, allowing these weapons to travel in packs and hunt ships all on their own. And if that's not enough, the LRASM can even be fitted with an additional rocket booster to be launched from inside the Navy's Mark 41 vertical launch system tubes as a surface-to-surface anti-ship weapon. And because both the JASSM-ER and LRASM have the same exterior dimensions as the original JASSM, that means they can be launched by the dozen via the same Rapid Dragon system aboard cargo aircraft. This combination of stealth design elements, extended ranges, and artificial intelligence-enabled coordination between weapons make the JASSM family of missiles among the most potent air-launched weapons in service anywhere in the world today. But now let's move back out toward the future with the Hypersonic Attack Cruise Missile, or HACM. While the AGM-183 Arrow's troubled development cycle dominated many discussions about America's air-launched hypersonic aspirations, a very different type of hypersonic weapon has been quietly maturing in the background: the scramjet-powered Hypersonic Attack Cruise Missile. Now, Arrow, like both Russia's and China's hypersonic weapons in service, are all classified as hypersonic glide vehicles, which can be thought of as an extension of ballistic missile technology. They're carried aloft and to speed by a conventional rocket motor before separating at a lower altitude than ballistic missile warheads usually do, and then continuing, unpowered but maneuvering at high speeds, down toward their targets. HACM, on the other hand, aims to be the world's first truly operational hypersonic cruise missile, meaning it flies along a lower, more horizontal flight path under power the whole time, more similar to an aircraft or suicide drone than to a ballistic warhead. In order to maintain speeds in excess of Mach 5 while it does this, HACM also relies first on a conventional rocket booster to bring it up to the necessary speed and altitude for its exotic onboard propulsion system, known as a scramjet, or supersonic combustion ramjet, to roar to life. Now, scramjets are a form of air-breathing jet engine designed specifically to operate at high speeds. With few or no moving parts, these engines rely on the immense pressure of inflowing supersonic air, along with shockwaves created by very intentional inlet design to produce the compression required to mix dense air with fuel and then ignite it to be detonated out the back for propulsion. Because of this, scramjets just don't function effectively at lower speeds at all, but thrive at speeds above Mach 4 and can very likely reach speeds in excess of Mach 10. Now, this Raytheon, or RTX designed weapon, is said to have an operational range likely in excess of 1,000 miles, with a top speed of around Mach 8 and the ability to unpredictably change course in order to avoid intercept by enemy air defenses. The Pentagon envisions using the F-15E Strike Eagle and probably in the future the F-15EX, as well as the F/A-18 Super Hornet, particularly in Australian service, as this weapon's initial launch platforms. But the JASSM is considered to be small enough to be employed by a variety of other aircraft. While the Air Force had multiple successful test flights of the scramjet propulsion system for this weapon back in 2022 and early 2023, it intends to kick off a rigorous flight testing regime for the completed weapon starting this fall, with 13 tests scheduled to take place between October 2024 and March of 2027, just prior to the Air Force making its final production decision. Now, the Air Force intends to see JASSM enter service as early as 2027, just after testing is complete, provided everything goes according to plan. But not all of these new weapons are entirely new, and with that in mind, let's talk about the Navy's AIM-174B, America's first new air-to-air missile in over 3 decades. The AIM-174B finally broke cover last month after at least 3 years of secretive refinement. While a new weapon in the air-to-air role, the missile itself is actually a variation on the RIM-174, or SM-6, surface-to-air missile interceptor that entered service aboard the US Navy's warships back in 2013. The SM-6 was already touted as among America's most capable interceptors prior to this revelation, with the head of the U.S. Missile Defense Agency, U.S. Navy Vice Admiral John Hill, describing the SM-6 as the only interceptor in the U.S. arsenal that's already capable of downing inbound hypersonic weapons back in 2022. Now, the SM-6's air-launched sibling promises to give the Navy's F/A-18 Super Hornets not only the means to intercept inbound ballistic, cruise, or even hypersonic missiles before they can reach their carrier, but to engage enemy aircraft or even surface targets like warships from ranges that are very likely in excess of 200 miles. Making the AIM-174B the longest-reaching air-to-air missile the United States has ever fielded. That kind of range actually even exceeds the reach of the Super Hornet's AN/APG-79 active electronically scanned array radar's ability to locate and identify targets, a problem the Navy has addressed through the maturation of the Naval Integrated Fire Control Counter-Air concept, which is a mouthful of a way to describe what's commonly called a kill web, drawing in target data from a wide variety of other assets in the battle space, ranging from F-35s flying further ahead into contested airspace to the incredibly powerful radars found aboard America's Aegis-equipped warships. The AIM-174B appears to be so capable, in fact, that an F-35 flying into contested airspace could theoretically identify an airborne target at the outside reach of its own onboard AMRAAMs, relay that target data back to a Super Hornet flying, let's say, 100 miles behind it, and still have the Super Hornet engage that aircraft on the F-35's behalf. This weapon has massive implications for a fight over the Pacific, where the AIM-174B could not only hold large, sluggish targets like adversary tankers or command and control aircraft at risk from significant ranges, but can even be used to supplement the air defense and even surface strike capabilities of the carrier strike group, leveraging one of the same broadly capable weapons you'll actually find inside the vertical launch system tubes of American destroyers and cruisers inside that strike group. Now, unlike other weapons on this list, this wasn't a program of record that was announced years ahead of time, but was rather a weapon that entered operational service and then was just acknowledged as real once people started spotting it strapped to Super Hornets. And in fact, a few US Navy F/A-18s were even spotted carrying this weapon during the large-scale naval war games held just a few weeks ago called RIMPAC 2024. And while we're talking about air-to-air missiles, I can't make a list like this and not mention the AIM-260 Joint Advanced Tactical Missile. Now, the AIM-260 is probably the highest profile new air-to-air missile in development for the United States right now. It's slated to replace the long-serving AIM-120 AMRAAM, or Advanced Medium Range Air-to-Air Missile, and it's expected to be just about the same size, but with a significant increase in range meant to offset the reach of advanced new Chinese and Russian radar-guided air-to-air missiles. Seeing as the AMRAAM is already capable of reaching targets in the triple-digit range, this advanced new replacement is expected to offer a significant leap in capability, renewing America's beyond visual range air-to-air advantage. This weapon is expected to boast a multi-mode seeker, combining both active radar homing like you'd find in the AMRAAM with an infrared optical sensor similar to those found in weapons like the AIM-9 Sidewinder family. This combination of seekers, in conjunction with its ability to network with other assets within the kill web via data link, will allow this missile to continue closing with targets really regardless of countermeasures, as it fuses target data from multiple sources to complete a robust target picture. This joint Air Force and Navy development effort was first disclosed to the public in 2019, though few details have really surfaced since. To date, the full range, propulsion type, or capability set expected to be offered by this missile all remain classified. All we really know for certain is that this weapon is expected to offer similar dimensions to the AMRAAM, so it can be easily stowed within the weapon bays of stealth fighters like the F-35 and F-22, and that production of this Lockheed Martin-led missile was expected to begin in 2023, though thus far there's been no hard confirmation that it actually did. Once in service, the AIM-260 is expected to be a staple for the newly upgraded F-22 Raptor, as well as a cornerstone weapon for both the next-generation air dominance fighter meant to replace the Raptor and the collaborative combat aircraft, or AI-enabled drones, meant to fly alongside that new jet. Now, to be clear, this has not been an exhaustive list of all the advanced new air-launched weapons in development or making their way into service as we speak, and I do have several other videos running through the half dozen or so new air-to-air missiles in the works, as well as others diving into some of these specific weapon systems with a lot more depth. But I find it's really helpful, at least for me anyway, to combine all of these disparate elements into a single piece every so often to get a better view at the overarching trends in air power today. And I hope that's what you got out of this video. If you'd like to see other similar lists, let me know in the comments below what you'd want me to run down. But before we close, let's hear one more time from our sponsor. Conflict of Nations is a free online PvP strategy game happening in modern global warfare. Choose your own strategy, engage in epic battles, and even take over the world. And if you follow that link in the description right now, you can start off with 13,000 gold and a 1-month free premium subscription. And don't forget, that offer's only good for 30 days, so follow that link in the description below and get in on the action. And with that ends yet another edition of Air Power from Sandboxx News. I'm Alex Hollings. Make sure to swing by sandboxnews.com today and every day for all the latest in news, entertainment, and motivation from all around the force. If you got anything out of today's video, make sure to click like and subscribe down below, and leave me a comment so I know what I should cover next. And of course, don't forget to tap on that bell icon so you never miss a drop from Sandboxx News.